All right, good afternoon, everybody. Can I get a quick thumbs up if you can hear me all right? Awesome. If there's anybody in here that's having any trouble with the headsets, keep your hands up and we'll have one of the techs come around. So I'd like to welcome you all to the Story Points Theater here and to this session titled Self-Service and Governance, the Art of Balance. Please do not fear that phrase, the art of balance. I assure you, you have not stumbled upon any type of yoga meetup. Rather, we're here to talk about how you can leverage the Tableau server platform to strike a happy balance between control and enablement. Both of these things are going to have a ton of benefits to you and your companies. Now, as I talk through these slides, I want to encourage you all to try to think with a beginner's mind, if you will. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that are experts in this space, have been in this space for a long time. I've been doing this for about 20 years in BI and analytics, and I know that we, and by we I mean me, have a tendency to do things certain ways because, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I've been amazed at how much more, how open my mind can get when I stop thinking about the ways I've always done it and open my brain for new ideas. So now, since I haven't had the opportunity to meet everybody in the room here today, I'm going to introduce myself before we get started, then hopefully I'll get to meet some of you all throughout the week here. As this slide suggests, my name is Kevin Taylor. I'm a sales consultant, senior sales consultant with Tableau, and I'm based out of Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina. Anybody in here from Fuquay? Didn't think so. Anybody here even heard of Fuquay? One guy in the back of the room, I appreciate that. So for the rest of you, you're probably curious, Fuquay-Varina is located just south of Raleigh, North Carolina, or as the locals like to say, we're out in the cut. So I've been with Tableau now for about 4 years, but like most of you all in the room, I was a customer of Tableau's at Cisco and at NetApp for about 7 years before joining Tableau. And I've done this for about 2 decades now, so it's really all I know, BI, analytics. I did it the painful way, or as we like to call it, traditional BI. Now, let's see here, moving along here. What does it say? I'm a ladies' man? I actually meant family man, but they're two in the same. This is my family here, my beautiful wife, Catherine, my 2 beautiful daughters, Casey Lee and Kennedy, and then my 2 twin Aussie pups there, Eva and Delilah. If you're doing the counting, that's a lot of ladies in the house, but not to worry, I live in the country. So we've also got 7 hens and 1 rooster. That's Henry right there, so I'm not alone at home. Aside from family and work, I'm blessed to work with some children with special needs and their families through a ministry I help coordinate back home. Incredibly challenging, but 10 times more rewarding. Now, if I get the opportunity to meet y'all here at conference, let's talk about bullet points number 2 and number 3, please. If you want to talk about data, we can talk about data though too. Now, that's beyond enough about me. What are we going to talk about here today? What is this session about? What's sitting between you and that beverage you've been thinking about? First of all, we're going to talk about the Tableau platform. We're going to talk about the overall governance framework. Then we're going to dive into 2 flavors of governance, data governance and content governance, some of the out-of-box capabilities that will help you deliver on these. We're also going to talk about some of the roles that are going to touch the analytics platform on a daily basis in most data-driven organizations. Then we're going to wrap up talking about 3 very common business or governance models that we see in the field. For the planners in the room, I'm going to talk for about 50 minutes or so. And then since it is late in the afternoon, if you guys want to take off at that time, you can. If you still have questions, I'm going to ask you to come to the front. We'll have a little bit of an informal Q&A. I think it works a little bit better with these headphones in than me trying to hear you from the back. Hopefully that sounds good to everybody, so let's get started here. Most of you all are pretty familiar with the Blueprint by now. This is part of the Blueprint track. So where does governance fit into the Blueprint? Governance is a welcome necessity throughout the entire Blueprint as we start to define roles and responsibilities and the processes that will secure our environment while also providing the ability and adoption and usage, hence the art of balance. Now, as we go through these, I've transposed those 3 icons, agility, proficiency, and community, up by the logo on the slides as I feel that content pertains to those 3 different tracks. So look for those there, and you'll have them when you download the workbook. So why is this balance so important? Why are you here today? What's to gain and what's to lose? First of all, for the IT and BI contingent, there's compliance and the ability to rest easy knowing that the data is being used as intended. For the business, there's an increased level of trust in the data to make this, mission critical decisions. For IT, there's the ability to see what data is being used and by whom and how it's used. For the business, it's the ability to find the right answer to the right questions to drive the right actions. And finally, in a shared or delegated environment like Tableau Server, IT can focus their time on some more value-add activities like performance and security, while allowing the business to scale the operational side of analytics at the speed of the business rather than waiting in line for IT. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that. So hopefully everyone agrees that these are noble goals of a data-driven organization. Let's take a step back now. We're going to look at the platform for a 10,000-foot view, and then we'll look at why we built the platform the way that we did. So at Tableau, we understand that data is a mission-critical asset to your organizations. If it weren't, you probably wouldn't be here in Las Vegas today with 18,000 like-minded data enthusiasts. This is why we've built the Tableau platform with everything you need, not only to empower everyone in your organizations with data, that's a noble goal, but to do so without putting your organizations and without putting your data at risk. In the center here, it's the meat of our platform. Starting at the bottom, there's everything from accessing your data, to cleaning and prepping your data, to data certifications and permissioning. We combine this with machine learning to help guide your users to the right content for their analysis, and advanced analytics to uncover the stories that are hidden in your data. And we give you also the mechanisms to collaborate and share your insights across the entire organization. We surround this with everything that you need to keep that analytics environment secure and to remain compliant, as well as the ability to automate your processes through APIs and to drive action through our extensions. Quite possibly the most important thing that we offer you is flexibility. The flexibility you need to scale to your entire enterprise. If you want to deploy your server on premise, if you want to deploy it in the cloud, or if you want to deploy on Tableau Online, our fully hosted SaaS solution, that choice is yours. If you want to deploy on Linux, if you want to deploy on Windows, if you want to connect to your data live, if you want to extract your data, and if you want to present that data maybe through your embedded applications or through the Tableau server portal, or maybe on a mobile app, we give you all of those options. So that's the platform at a 10,000-foot view, but why do we build it this way? What was in it for our customers? While traditional and operational reporting haven't yet vanished, most companies agree and have realized that there's too much data and too many people in your organization with questions about that data for just a few people in IT to be able to keep up and answer those questions at the speed of business. Depicted here at the center, this is our modern analytics workflow. At the center, there's three personas. We've got IT professionals, we've got our content authors, and then we've got our end users. And these three roles here are going to share some of those processes that you see around the outside of the wheel here. Now, rather than talking about each one of those, let me take you through a pretty common business scenario. Starting at the top of the wheel here, let's say that I'm a sales rep and I receive my monthly subscription in my inbox. It tells me what do I need to sell in the next month to hit my quota. I can drill down into it, maybe do some filters and see by category or by product line, what do I need to sell to hit my number. That's great, but wouldn't it be nice if I could look at this on a map and check out my region? So I open up the report in Web Edit, I double click, do some drag and drops, I create a nice map. I think it's pretty useful, so I want to share that with my team. So I publish it up to a sandbox environment. We take a look at it on the next team call. My team thinks it's great, my manager thinks it's the bee's knees, so she asks BI, can we promote this into production? The BI team takes a look at it, makes sure it's sourced from the right sources, the joins look right, the calculations look correct, visual best practices have been adhered to. Once all those boxes are checked, they publish that up into production, and now the rest of the organization can take advantage of that. In my pre-Tableau world, excuse me, let me go back here. Showing you too much here. In my pre-Tableau world, if this were even possible, this would take weeks, if not months, if not quarters, if not longer. There were bottlenecks at every single stage. But with today's Tableau Analytics platform, going from access and view to share can be done literally in minutes, and then with only the promotion process left. And if that's agile enough, this could easily be done within the confines of a single business day. Why is that so critical? Scalability. If for no other reason, the traditional BI approach again failed us because too many people in the organization have too many questions. Those questions change too frequently for just a few people, especially a few people in IT that are far removed from the business to be able to answer those at the necessary speed. So what happens? People are left waiting for someone in IT to answer their question, and if you don't have VP or above on the front of the title, it can be really hard to get to the front of that line. Now, I don't think I mentioned the age of my children when I showed them earlier, but my daughters are twins, they're 5 years old, and I like to read to them a lot, and I love books that rhyme, and I showed you this already, gave you a little sneak preview here, but Dr. Seuss gets a ton of airplay in our house. Has anybody in here heard of the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go? If you haven't heard it, read it. It's a great graduation gift to give to people. But Dr. Seuss warns of getting stuck in a most useless place, the waiting place. The waiting place is for people just waiting. Waiting for a train to go waiting for a train to go or a bus to come or a plane to go. Everybody's just waiting. Waiting for a new column or a table join or just a new calculation. Everyone's just waiting. Waiting for a new report or just a simple change. Your business is just waiting in line for IT. So how do we help our business get out of this most useless waiting place? The answer, folks, is self-service analytics, specifically governed self-service. It's a balance of control and empowerment designed to meet the demands of today's data landscape. So we're talking about things like empowering people to ask and answer questions. Has anybody heard that questions beget questions? As we ask questions, we get answers. As we get answers, we ask new questions we never knew we had. Questions certainly that IT doesn't know we have. We're talking about empowering or enabling those same people there to easily share insights across their team in a secure fashion. And we're talking about ensuring that the data that they're sharing is secure, it's relevant, it's up to date, it's trusted by the business. So let's talk more about governance and get into the proposed governance framework. Desert air. My voice, I don't know if my voice is going to make it through this. At a high level here, there's two pillars of data governance. I mentioned in the agenda, the governance model, data governance and content governance. Data governance here on the left, things like data quality, data enrichment, metadata management. On the right, content governance, things like content promotions, certifications, permissioning, content utilization, just to name a few. The governance framework in Tableau encompasses the people that understand and comply with your organization's strategies, your processes, as well as Tableau supporting capabilities. By combining people and process and technologies, we've created a foundation for accountability that not only enables rather than just restricting access to your secure and trusted data for all skill levels in your organization. Now, before we dive in, I want to discuss some of the structure and some of the roles that are going to come into play with the analytics platform. This is going to be a review for some of you that have already worked with Server, but when you install Tableau Server, you get two things. You get a default site and a default project, what I've shown here. As you add permissions to your default sites and projects, that's what's going to trickle down to your new projects and new sites when you create those. So you want to be strategic. Now, a site is merely a collection of users or groups and content, so your workbooks, your data sources, your prep workflows. The users and the content within a particular site are walled off from the other users and the other content on sites on that same server. We'll come back to that here in a minute. A project is very similar to a site It's a container as well for content organization. However, you're going to use specific permissions to define the capabilities that users and groups have within those projects. As you can see here, we've got multiple sites. So Tableau Server does support multi-tenancy by allowing administrators to create sites for users, maybe collection, maybe by geography, maybe by department. So again, if you're not part of that site's users, you don't know about that site's existence. As of 2019.4, we also have site visibility control, where you can start to wall off projects from other projects. You could technically have multi-tenancy within a single site. So I'm not going to talk too much about that, but this hierarchical structure here is what allows for scope delegation of administration at the server level, the site level, and then the project level. So now that we have that visual reference of how Tableau Server can be structured, let's look at some of the administrative roles and then the user roles. So I'm going to talk about two administrators. We've got server administrator and site administrator, and then the project leader. So starting off with the server administrator, they're going to be responsible for the overall health of the server. Things like high availability of access and performance. They handle things like software upgrades and tweaking server parameters like max query times. They're going to oversee things like custom schedule creation for tasks, such as extract refreshes and subscriptions. Server administrator is going to have access to all content on that server. The site administrator is going to be responsible for more of the daily operational administrative tasks that are required for a particular department or geography. They're typically going to be a little closer to the business than the server administrator. They're going to do things like adding users or groups, applying content permissions, which should take a lot off the plate of your server administrators, and it's going to help with agility. Site administrators are going to have access to all content within their site or sites. Now, a project leader is going to be responsible for handling some of the governance and the permissions for particular project and the nested projects underneath that. They're going to be able to assist with things like granting permissions, but they won't have all the rights of an admin, like adding new users. By delegating some of the site and project governance to trusted members of your business, your server admins can focus on more high priority tasks like the performance, like security, like project upgrades, while allowing the business to take care of the operational tasks that they're better equipped to handle by being closer to the business. They understand who should see what better than IT can. Now let's look at some of the user roles which align to our user-based subscriptions or role-based subscriptions. If you come from a core model or maybe the interactor model, these could be new to you. So starting out here on the left in the orange, we've got our creators. Creators are the ninjas. They are the power users in your organization who understand how to leverage Tableau Server to create and publish data sources, as well as to author dashboards that are consumed by the larger audiences. If I break this down, starting with the data and then moving into the content, your data source creators are often referred to as data Sherpas. They likely already have access to your back-end databases. They understand the infrastructure there. So they're going to be the ones that create the metadata layer and curate the data so it can be used by others. Your dashboard creators then may have that same level of data access, but it's not necessarily required. If your data source creators publish those data sources up to your Tableau server, your creators and your explorers alike are going to be able to tap into that and not go to your back end. Creators are going to get access to all the Tableau products, including Tableau Desktop, Tableau Prep Builder, as well as either Tableau Server or Tableau Online. In the middle here, we've got our explorers, and they're going to likely make up a much larger percentage of your organization. These are often the more curious people in your organizations who want to be more informed with data. These are the folks that have a lot of questions. Those questions change by the minute and they demand answers. So if you're in IT today, these are the folks that email you every other day asking for a new report. So they should be really easy to spot. So unfortunately, these Tableau creators over here on the left, they are ninjas, but I've never seen a ninja with a crystal ball. And without a crystal ball, there's no way they can predict all the questions that the business has. This is why the Explorer role is absolutely critical to that modern analytics workflow and the agility and the ability to ask those next questions. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Now, unlike creators, explorers are not going to have access to desktop or prep. They're going to do everything through the web, either on server or online. Now, our last role there is the Tableau viewer. The Tableau viewer are your more casual consumers of your data. They may need to access a handful of report or dashboards, but typically a couple filters, maybe a couple drill downs, and they've got their answers. They move about in their business. This is one group where we typically see customers overestimate. They like the price of a viewer, but they underestimate how curious your knowledge workers are and how much they want to ask that next question. So now that you're familiar with the framework and you're familiar with how the users may fit into the server framework, let's dive into the two pillars of the governance framework: data governance and content governance, starting with data governance. Oh, want to go back one? For most IT organizations, ensuring that the right data is available to the right people at the time they need it, that's mission critical. Often if the business is not empowered with data, or if there's too many obstacles or they have to do gymnastics to get to the data, all too often they're going to go the route of locally saving that data, no matter how sensitive it is, putting your data at risk, putting your organization at risk. They're going to use whatever free tool they can get their hands on, no matter how unsecure or error prone it is, like Excel. And again, everything's at risk. This is what we call in the industry working in silos or the wild, wild west, and it's not what we want. In a self-service environment, the role of data governance instead is to enable access rather than restrict it, and to allow users to get to the data they need in this controlled environment, allowing IT the visibility and ensuring data compliance. So let's break this down, starting with data source management. Data source management is all about providing easy access to your sources of data, but remaining compliant with your strategies and your procedures and your policies. Data source management enables your users to choose from certified data sources. These are data sources that they trust, have been vetted for accuracy, been kept fresh with the most recent data. They get to choose the most relevant data source based on the business question they have, instead of having to ask questions or answer questions like, what's a right join, or what's a left join, or what's an oracle? Is it that woman from Matrix, right? So what does this look like in Tableau? Excuse me. Very simplified view here. First, your creators connect to your data with over 65 native connectors, gives you the flexibility you need. Next, you choose if you want to connect to that data live or if you want to extract it and bring it into memory. If you've invested in a high-performant back-end database like Snowflake, go live, use it that way. If you've got a slow-running back-end database, bring it into memory, use our investment in Hyper. Next, you can use either Tableau Desktop or Tableau Prep to curate your data and to build your metadata model. Once your data is curated, it's ready to be analyzed. You can do that in desktop, or the data can be published up to Tableau server and be used and explored and analyzed by other explorers and other creators in your organization. Now, for those just getting started, or even for those trying to kickstart your adoption, we do have some recommendations to help you move from what we call data use cases to data assets or published data sources. So let's take a look at that. First of all, we suggest going across multiple departments for high value quick wins. Best way to do this is to start with data that your business is already familiar with. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Find things that the business already uses on a daily basis, because Tableau is going to allow you to quickly start prototyping and iterating on content where the data exists today, and in many cases as it exists today. There's no need to wait for that data warehouse to be 100% perfect. How many people here have heard of Jeff Bezos at Amazon? He's been quoted as saying that if we wait for even 90% of the data that we wish we had, we're probably being slow. He recommends if you've got 70% of the data you wish you had, you're probably ready to start analyzing it. So what are some of those departmental quick wins? IT is already looking at help desk tickets. Finance is already looking at budget spend. Marketing is already looking at campaign effectiveness. Customer support's already looking at call volume. So take Tableau and tap into those and find new ways to use that. Once you do have that data use case, first, your creators are going to go in and publish curated data sets that have been vetted for accuracy up to Tableau server. They can apply a certification watermark to help your analyst easily delineate what's trusted versus what's not. Since we've exposed only curated data, your creators and explorers can begin analyzing the data and prototyping on content, which can be shared and ultimately consumed by any of your viewers, or any of your users, including your viewers. Now, most of the content is going to be this productionalized, vetted content. But for the sake of agility, we also want to include the ability to use ad hoc content. So ad hoc content is going to give you that agility. You want to put some rules around that, but you want to have that environment to allow something maybe that needs to get done within the hour. Now, as we empower more people in our organizations with data, data governance becomes even more critical. Things like data quality, right? Tableau's invested a ton in this space over the last few years, as evidenced by the release of Tableau Prep back in spring of 2018. Data quality is just an assessment of the accuracy and completeness and the reliability of your data to make decisions off of it. In its raw state, data is rarely perfect. But the visualizations that we generate in desktop and even through the profiling capabilities in Prep, we can start to more easily identify and clean up and ultimately enrich that data. Now, what we're looking at here is a Prep workflow. Hopefully y'all are familiar with Prep. But Prep, one of the best things it does is gives us nearly immediate feedback on what our data transformations might look like after we do the transformation. So in this particular flow, the flow is at the top. We're highlighted on the join there. There's a Venn diagram with green, shows that it's a right join. If we come over here, we can see what were the join clauses. Here we joined on country and on year. We can see here with the stacked bar charts, how many rows are going to be included in that result set. How many rows are going to be excluded from that result set. And if we know our data and we know our business, we can get some cues as to whether that's the right type of join. Over here on the right, the text in red, those are values that didn't show up. And again, if we understand our data, we can determine if that was right or if that was wrong. Now, having been a data architect in a past life, I can tell you from my experience, this is a complete breath of fresh air. I remember times when I would take data and I'd join two tables and I'd hit run. And then I'd go see my manager, I'd go visit a friend in the next building over, I'd go grab lunch, I'd come back 2 hours later, and it's not the results I wanted, right? 2 hours wasted, back to square zero. Tableau Prep takes that out. It gets that completely out of the equation. You don't have to worry about that. Sometimes we need to enrich our data. Tableau Prep's going to make that easy, whether we need to clean our data just to remove dashes or punctuation. Maybe we need to remove some numbers or handle some spelling discrepancies. Prep makes this all as simple as a couple clicks thanks to smart algorithms. Or maybe we just need to join in a local data source. Maybe we've got some quotas or some targets sitting around in a local file. Does anybody in here realize that in Tableau Prep now, you can source published data sources? A few hands. That is an amazing new feature. I encourage you to check out. It was very high in our ideas forum. But what that means is you could have one of your creators go through joining the tables and creating a bunch of, you get this nice married data set, but you just need that one more thing put into it. And now you can do it through Tableau Prep by joining a published data source to any other data source available in Prep. So to me, that's an amazing thing. And as of 2019.2, these workflows can be automated to run on a schedule via Tableau Prep Conductor. So this ensures the data remains fresh and relevant. Just like your Tableau data extracts, you can publish your workflows up to Tableau server and set them to run on a schedule of your choice. This allows you to scale Prep Builder across your entire enterprise. Now, with all these new capabilities, new ways to create data sources, there comes a greater need to catalog all of these assets. enter in one of Tableau's latest and arguably greatest new features. Graham Britz talked about this morning in the keynote, the Tableau Data Catalog. This was recently introduced as part of 2019.3 release, and having cut my teeth in IT, I'm excited about this one. To me, one of the most valuable aspects of Data Catalog isn't what it does for IT, but it's the increase in trust in your data across all of your different roles. So with more data being exposed to your knowledge workers every single day, not only does it become harder to find the right data sources, but once we find them, it's harder to trust those data sources. This wastes a ton of energy and a ton of time. And it has the potential to send people back to those silos. But with Tableau's Data Catalog, you get a complete view of where your data is sourced from, who authored and who published your data sources, who can you contact if you have questions or if you have concerns, and when was your data last updated. And if we make a change to a data source, we need to understand the lineage, aka which workbooks or views are affected downstream, who owns that content, so I can click a button and email them to warn them that there's a change in the data source that they're using to create a certain report. It's direct and interactive and visual in true Tableau fashion, and with that click of a button, it's also fully actionable. And again, that's not it. It's not just the creators that benefit. This information trickles all the way down to your views and your dashboards, so your explorers and your viewers can rest assured that they're using data that's relevant, it's up to date, and it's accurate, ultimately giving them the trust and the confidence that they need to make decisions based off that data. Quite possibly, I know I said that was the best part, but maybe the better part is it's plug and play. I talked about that during the keynote again. Once you enable the data catalog, your metadata is already sitting there, so it's ready almost immediately. It's all exciting stuff, but we mustn't forget about security. Our data is precious and we need to treat it as such. One way Tableau users can secure assets is through another 2019.3 release, Encryption at rest, more specifically extract encryption at rest or object level encryption. I'm not going to bore you with the specs there, but I do want to talk about those two different modes. First, we have an enforced mode. With an enforced mode, it's exactly like it sounds. Every extract on your server is going to be encrypted, no matter how it got there, whether it was from Prep or Builder or Conductor, the REST API, or even third-party tools like Alteryx and Informatica. Also, all your extracts existing on your server are automatically going to get encrypted as well. The enabled mode, however, encryption gets specified at the workbook level, the published data source level, or even the prep flow level by the content owner. So this mode supports the idea of self-service in that it empowers your content owners to make that decision based on their knowledge of the sensitivity of the data. Now, aside from encryption, Tableau Platform offers robust security permissioning with the flexibility to fit it into your current policies, your current procedures, and your current technologies. For single sign-on, for authentication there, you can choose between local authentication or we can sync to your Active Directory. For single sign-on, your choices start with SAML and Kerberos and OpenID. If you're looking to embed your analytics like so many of our customers are doing, trusted tickets and trusted authentication are great options, providing that seamless experience that your customers and your partners and your stakeholders expect. At the data level, you can leverage our database user permissions or use one of several options to invoke row-level security. This will allow your users to publish a single data source or a single dashboard and allow many users to access this, knowing that they're only going to be able to see the data that they're supposed to see. At the network level, there's so many options to lock down the house. Everything from client-server SSL, secure database drivers, reverse proxies, and load balancing options to hide the true location of your server. At the network level, these features here are going to help customers with enterprise data security policies as well as regulations, external regulations like SOX and HIPAA compliance. Now, to curate data sources, the Tableau platform helps you autonomously define, update, and expose your metadata for your users in a way that's easy for them to understand. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's the ability to change field names so they're business friendly. You don't want field names with underscores, or if you're sourcing your data from SAP, right? Maybe German field names aren't the best for your English-speaking users. Things like setting date types or data types, so your dates are dates, and you can take advantage of the date parsing that Tableau does. Or maybe you want to drag and drop and create some hierarchies or apply formatting to your data. And then even in Ask Data, we give you the ability to use synonyms for field names and field values. I'm not going to go through all of those, but the last thing here with data governance is the ability to manage and monitor it. So Tableau offers some out-of-the-box admin views, as well as the ability to custom query your metadata through Postgres. Here you might ask questions like, how long do my extracts run? And are they all succeeding? Or maybe we were seeing some failures. What about subscriptions? Are they being sent on time? Is your data being duplicated? Could we be a little more efficient? And of course, what data is being used, and are there data sources that are not being used? These are all great for understanding what's working well and what's not. But what if something's amiss? How do we determine why these things aren't working well? Tableau's making that simpler as well through the new resource monitoring tool. It's going to tap into your hardware performance data to determine things like, why did an extract fail? Did we have enough CPU? Do we have enough RAM? Is user concurrency on the rise? Do we see spikes at certain times of days or on certain days? Do we need more throughput? Like, are we creating our own waiting place here? These are all incredibly valuable information as we ensure a highly available and highly performant environment for our analytics. So this completes the discussion on data governance. Let's now talk about the second main pillar here, content governance. Starting with content management. Content management starts with things like standardizing on naming conventions and organizing your content using Tableau's sites and projects. A good content management strategy should support both certified and ad hoc content that can be easily delineated. You'll want to keep your data sources separate from your dashboards to make things easier to find and get to. For your certified or your trusted or blessed content, visual best practices should be established. Maybe this means leveraging corporate colors, or simply avoiding red and green color combinations. Or maybe it's limiting your dashboards to X number of views. Descriptions and tags can be leveraged as well to help users find the content that they're looking for, along with Tableau's machine learning. One of the things you probably heard about in the keynote this morning was the release of view recommendations in 2019.4. So just like Netflix, this is going to help point your users to content that's either been used a lot or is popular amongst similar like users or users like you. And content must remain fresh and relevant. This includes keeping data refreshed, but also getting rid of that stale content so that that's not in the way. How does Tableau help with content management? Take a sip. One way is through a platform structure that's designed to support a content promotion process like the one that you're seeing here. Prior to validation over on the left there, the audience is rather limited. It's just a few people, it's your creators. With your larger audience only getting exposure post-certification. So we'll want to define a process for validating that the content is correct. Again, IT and the business can work together here to ensure that the data is sourced from the right data sources, the calculations look right, the joins look right, and then of course the best practices have been applied before moving anything into production. You want to define a process for actually physically promoting that content. So assuming that the data has been validated and visual best practices have been applied, you want a process that's going to physically move that content to that production environment. And then we're going to want a process for certifying content, which is including physically watermarking your certified data sources and creating projects specifically for your blessed content. As of 2019.3, we're making the promotion process even easier for Tableau Server customers with the introduction of our new server management features like the content migration tool. The content migration tool is going to help with your operational efficiency through automation of that migration process, whether that be across multiple sites or multiple servers. Maybe it's the old waterfall of dev, test, prod, or even across multiple projects. So let's take a look at what that project structure might look like, say for human resources. Here we've got 3 projects for the HR team. A sandbox project, we've got a staging project, and then we've got a certified production project with nested projects in each. Notice that we've locked all of those projects, including the sandbox. Why would we want to lock a sandbox? Just as much as we want to keep unvetted content out of our certified projects, we also want to keep our decision makers out of our sandbox projects where the content is not trusted or vetted. This project structure is going to enable the business with a sandbox to do exploration and to experiment, a staging area for content to sit until it gets vetted, and then a production project where those end users can trust that content. Now, while this could be done, again, across sites or even across multiple server instances through scripting, we believe that that is an unnecessary cost and an unnecessary effort and can stunt agility. So instead, what I like to recommend to customers, and this comes with a little bit of friction at times, is that you can do all of this in a single site through our project structure. Even large organizations can maintain governance in a single site. And I know this firsthand because I consult one of our customers who has over 12,000 global customers or global users on a single site on Tableau Online. So if you want to talk about that or you want to talk about Tableau Online, we'll add that to the family and the ministry stuff. Now, regarding security and permissions as it pertains to content governance, it's all about 2 questions. Authentication, should we be here? Are we allowed to be here? And then authorization, if we are allowed to be here, what are we allowed to do? What are we allowed to see? We already discussed authentication, so let's focus in here on authorization. Our governance framework on the server offers permissioning again at the site level and the project level and the view level for users or groups. We do have some default personas with the roles, and with those roles, you get certain freedoms, but you can also explicitly grant or explicitly deny many granular capabilities, like the ability to download content, the ability to edit content, whether users can save versus save as, and these permissions can be applied to projects, views, and of course your published data sources. Now, the permissions model is going to look different for every organization, but there are some common questions that you can ask yourself to figure out what model looks right for your organization. Like, how do you want to organize your content, which typically would start with defining your audience, which may be best answered by how do we organize our users and our user types today. Maybe taking a look at AD is a good place. Once you understand your audience, you're going to want to think about how do they want to interact? How are they going to use the data? Is static views enough? Are filters enough? Or do we need to give them the capability and empower them to ask why? And then once you have your strategy, that's when you should start thinking about restrictions. Instead of restricting everything and working backwards, we suggest figuring out a strategy and then beginning to apply those restrictions. Like maybe giving this group of power users the ability to publish up to certain folders or projects, while another group of field reps simply needs the ability to drag and drop or drill on published content. Now, in addition to all those permissions that you can set, there's still more ways to ensure content governance, like Tableau's site roles and the license levels, which both dictate what a user can or cannot do. You can also create your permissions templates and your rules, like locking down permissions for certain projects while putting rules on those ad hoc projects that you leave unlocked. And then finally, Tableau applies certain capabilities to content owners. So even more ways to ensure that your data content and your platform remain secure and that the data is used as intended. Now, just like with our data governance, Tableau offers many ways to monitor content governance. Here, questions might be like, how much traffic goes to these certain views, and is that what we expected? How many subscriptions or alerts get sent by day? When was the last time a user or a cohort of users logged in, and how frequently do they log in? Again, some of these can be answered through our out-of-the-box admin views. That's what you're looking at here on the right, or again, you can custom query the Postgres repository. So we've talked now a lot about Tableau Data's governance framework, how this fits into the modern analytics workflow. We've talked about Tableau server structure, a few of the key roles. We've dove into those two pillars of the framework, data governance, content governance, and I've shown you some of the Tableau features that are going to help make all of this possible on a single platform. With that, I want to wrap up talking about 3 very common governance models that we see in the field, starting with a very centralized model, either due to the complexity of your data, or maybe the sensitivity of your data, or maybe just because it's the way we've always done it. All data access and all content authoring is restricted to a centralized group, yet they're creating this content for the masses. This is the traditional approach, typically ends with a supply and demand problem, and most often is not going to keep up with the demand of the business. Enter in a delegated model. In a delegated model, we start to see increasing IT and business collaboration. We see the introduction of roles like data stewards and site administrators that act as intermediaries between IT and the business. Direct database is typically restricted to a trained group of users, think skill belts, and then published data sources are made available to creators and explorers. All the way on the right here, we've got the self-governing model. Here is where strong IT and business and trust and collaboration already exists. You have well-defined roles, you see more use of certified content, and there's a well-defined process for validating, promoting, and certifying your content. By having that promotion and certification process, this enables open data access and content that can be created or modified by most anybody with the skills to use Tableau. So with that, I'm going to wrap up here talking once more about the benefits of striking this balance. Starting with compliance and trust, it's about giving both IT and business confidence in the platform, confidence in the security, and confidence in the data to help them drive more data decision making. It's about helping IT understand how data is being used within your organization, and then helping your analysts and decision makers get to the data that they need to drive better decisions. And then finally, it's about freeing up IT's time to focus on things that only IT can do, like providing performance and security. As a result of these benefits, we've witnessed customer after customer where IT becomes the business enabler, and in doing so, informed users are empowered with data that they can trust to make better decisions. When this is achieved, IT becomes viewed as a trusted advisor by the business, which is critical for your data culture. As we wrap up today, I just want to say thank you all. Thank you all for your passion in Tableau, your passion in data, and thanks for choosing this session with all the other sessions you could have chosen. Before we wrap up, and I'm going to, again, if you want to come up and ask some Q&A, please do. I think it would be best if you keep the headphones on. That way I can repeat the questions to you. But I do have a few slides. Be sure to check out our booth down there for Blueprint. Check out the app. There's a few things you can do on there. If you're around tomorrow and Friday, Walmart's going to be talking about their governance. That is a massive deployment. So if you want to see how a big company with a lot of users does it, whoops, wrong slide. There's the Walmart stuff. We've also got the content migration tool. We've got a session on the catalog. Going back a slide, if you enjoyed the session or even if you didn't, please do give us feedback so we can make it a little bit better next year. With that, I say thank you again. Enjoy the rest of conference.